Good afternoon, everyone. And now, we will discuss how will climate change affect the world and society. Climate change is already affecting the planet and society and will continue to do so for generations to come. The physical and chemical changes of human activities are being felt in natural ecosystems on land and at sea, on farms and ranches, and in cities and suburbs, but the changes are not happening uniformly. Climate change could affect our society through impacts on a number of different social, cultural, and natural resources. The impacts of climate change on different sectors of society are interrelated. Drought can harm food production and human health. Flooding can lead to disease spread and damages to ecosystem and infrastructure. However, climate change impacts are uneven across the country and around the world. Even with a single community, climate change impact can differ between neighborhoods or individuals. Serious impact on the environment and people. As well as its serious impact on the environment and people, climate change is one of the biggest threats to economic stability. Heat waves makes us less able to work and reduce productivity. Hurricanes, cyclones, and typhoons devastate millions of people, leaving them in absolute poverty after ruthlessly sweeping away their communities. Next is droughts. Droughts shrink harvest, further complicating the arduous task of feeding the world population, which is expected to reach 10 billion by 2050 by World Population Prospects 2019 United Nations Organization. The World Bank is warning if we don't do something immediately, climate change could push 100 million more people into poverty by 2030. Climate change affect water. Changes to water resources can have a big impact on our lives. Flooding is an increasing issue as our climate is changing. Compared to the beginning of the 20th century, there are both stronger and more frequent abnormally heavy precipitation events across of the United States. Conversely, drought is also becoming more common, particularly in the western United States. Humans are using more water, especially for agriculture. Much like we sweat more when it is hot out, higher air temperature cause plants to lose or transpire more water, meaning farmers must give them more water. Both highlight the need for more water in places where supplies are dwindling. Snowpack is an important source of fresh water for many people. As the snow melts, fresh water becomes available for use, especially in regions like western US, where there is much precipitation in warmer months. But as temperatures warm, there is less snow overall and snow begins to melt earlier in the year, meaning snowpack may not be reliable source of water for the entire warm and dry seasons. Next is food. Our food supply depends on climate change and weather conditions. Although farmers and researchers may be able to adapt some agricultural techniques and technologies or develop new ones, some changes will be difficult to manage. Increased temperatures, drought, and water stress, diseases, and weather extremes create challenges for the farmers and ranchers who put food on our tables. Human farm workers can suffer from heat-related health issues like exhaustion, heat stroke, and heart attacks. Rising temperatures and heat stress can also harm livestock. Next is human health. Climate change is already impacting human health. Changes in weather and climate patterns can put lives at risk. Heat is one of the most deadly weather phenomena. As ocean temperatures rise, hurricanes are getting stronger and wetter, which can cause direct and indirect deaths. Dry conditions lead to more wildfires, which bring many health risks. Higher incidences of flooding can lead to the spread of waterborne diseases, injuries, and chemical hazards. As geographic ranges of mosquitoes and ticks expand, they can carry diseases to new locations. The most vulnerable groups, including children, the elderly, people with pre-existing health conditions, outdoor workers, people of color, and people with low income, are an even higher risk because of the compounding factors from climate change. But public health groups can work with local communities to help people understand and build resilience climate change health impacts. Next is environment. Climate change will continue to have a significant impact on ecosystems and organisms, though they are not impacted equally. The Arctic is one of the ecosystems most vulnerable to the effects of climate change, as it is warming at least twice the rate of the global average, and melting land, ice sheets, and glaciers contribute dramatically to sea level rise around the globe. Some living things are able to respond to climate change. Some plants are blooming earlier, and some species may expand their geographic range. But these changes are happening too fast for many other plants and animals, as increasing temperatures and changing precipitation patterns stress ecosystem. Some invasive or nuisance species like lionfish and ticks may thrive in even more places because of climate change. Changes are also occurring in the ocean. The ocean absorbs about 30% of carbon dioxide that is released into the atmosphere from the burning of fossil fuels. As a result, the water is becoming more acidic, affecting marine life. Sea levels are rising due to thermal expansion, in addition to melting ice sheets and glaciers, putting coastal areas at greater risk of erosion and storm surge. The compounding effects of climate change are leading to many changes in ecosystems. Coral reefs are vulnerable to many effects of climate change. Warming waters effects to climate change. Warming waters can lead to coral bleaching, stronger hurricanes can destroy reefs, and sea level rise can cause corals to be smothered by sediment. Coral reef ecosystems are home to thousands of species which rely on healthy coral reefs to survive. Lastly, the infrastructure. Physical infrastructure includes bridges, roads, ports, electrical grids, broadband, internet, and other parts of our transportation and communication system. It is often designed to be in use for years or decades, and many communities have infrastructure that was designed without future climate in mind. But even newer infrastructure can be vulnerable to climate change. Extreme weather events that bring heavy rains, floods, wind, snow, or temperature changes can stress existing structures and facilities. Increased temperatures require more indoor cooling, which can put stress on energy grid. Sudden heavy rainfall can lead to flooding that shuts down highways and major business areas. Many communities are not yet prepared to face climate-related threats. Even within a community, some groups are more vulnerable to these threats than others. Going forward, it is important to communities to invest in resilient infrastructure that will be able to withstand future climate risks. Researchers are studying current and future impacts of climate change on communities and can offer recommendations on best practices. Resilience education is vitally important for city planners, emergency managers, educators, communicators, and all other community members to prepare for climate change. Thank you.
My report is the continuation of how will climate change affect the world and society. So one of the effect of climate change is animal migration. So the changes in rainfall and temperature alters where various animals can live, forcing some species to migrate. Example nito is yung picture sa upper right, wherein a large number of birds are relocating. But usually, migratory birds migrate due to the change in temperature. They tend to relocate to a warmer place and to places with fewer predators in order to breed and raise their offsprings. But due to the climate change, migratory birds become smaller and their wings longer over the years, and the timing of their migrations has shifted substantially. It is said that scientists are studying how different species responded to past climate changes, hoping to better understand the impact of today's climate change on wildlife. And some species are seeing changes in migration patterns and animal behavior. Ganun din sa agriculture, where farmers see plants sprouting, flowering, and losing their leaves at a different time. Historic droughts are forcing farmers to plant different crops, and some farmlands is becoming unusable. So, yung picture sa lower left is a corn crops affected by drought, and yung isa naman is a flooded rice field. And the other effects, as the climate changes causes plants and animals to relocate, it is also said that disease will also move, exposing human populations and croplands, livestock, wildlife to new diseases. Climate change also affects human health and mortality. This might be caused by the direct effects from rising temperatures, degraded air quality, and greater risks from Lyme disease, hantavirus, and other diseases carried by insects and animals. Also, drought, degraded air and water quality, and greater hazards in coastal and low-lying regions will, as the World Health Organization points out, create an additional health problems, especially among the populations most vulnerable to natural hazards and diseases. And for instance, in 2007, National Research Council report national security implications of climate change for U.S. naval forces recognized that the effect of climate change will affect the security of nations as conflicts brew over competition for resources and land. And the prospect of large groups of climate refugees migrating across borders is a concern for governments as well as for organizations devoted to reducing risks and helping those who are living in poverty and in vulnerable regions. And even the insurance industry in US are already planning for the effect of climate change, which will often occur as natural hazards such as floods, fires, heat waves, and droughts, wherein insurance regulators have demanded that insurers in the United States report their risks from climate change, with one regulator saying climate change will have huge impact on the insurance industry, and we need better information on how insurers are responding to the challenge. And Munich Re, one of the largest reinsurers that gives a database of natural disasters, finds that the high number of weather-related natural catastrophes and record temperatures, both globally and in different regions of the world provide further indication of advancing climate change. Therefore, other leading insurance and finance companies have commissioned reports to evaluate the risks and opportunities created by climate change. Next is the many researchers work to develop detailed prediction about the effect of climate change. Predicting the long-term consequences is complicated in part because choices we make as individual and as a society will change those outcomes. This is one reason it's so important to learn what we can do about the climate change to make informed choices about the climate and prepare for the result of those choices.